How's it going, guys, and welcome into Nvidia Corporation stock. The ticker on the Nasdaq is NVDA, and as you can see, they have had one of the most impressive runs across the entire stock market, right now sitting at a value of about $413 US. So what we're going to be doing is doing some technical analysis today and taking a look at where we can expect to see the price of Nvidia go in the short to medium term. So first things first, let's zoom in a little and see what's going on from a shorter term perspective. Right now what we're seeing is a significant amount of consolidation occurring after a big jump up post their earnings that we saw here in 2023. That unfortunately though has created a gap, and that gap is from over here 24th of May 2023, the day high of $306.07, and then the following day over here, which was the 25th of May, which had a low of $366.35. So we are seeing a gap here. Typically what we see is gaps need to be filled, and I suspect really that's why the stock hasn't actually progressed that much, whereas historically it normally would. People are expecting that gap to be closed. Even more so, what we've seen as well is we are now sitting below, of course, our moving averages over here, our 20-day being the blue line and our 50-day being the red line. They are now acting as barriers for us and areas of resistance to get past, and we're seeing, of course, the long 200-day moving average starting to come up here, and that will be acting as a major point of support. Now, due to lots of price action, I'd suggest that right where we're sitting, probably just about, I'd say here, is at the, $400-ish mark, which is where I'd say our floor is at this point in time. You can see we never really got to that point previously. That is, I'd say, our current level of support. So if that level of support breaks, what I'm expecting to see is that this gap either closes or we see a bounce off the 200-day moving average. Now, of course, this really depends, of course, on whatever fundamental factors come into play. More earnings reports and that sort of thing could certainly result in seeing the price skyrocket. But if we're looking at it purely from a technical perspective, then I would suggest we're likely to see probably some sort of a drop occur. Now, if we zoom out a bit, is there some sort of, I suppose, a longer term pattern that we can put in place, or a longer term trend? Well, if we start all the way down here, back when we were at a bit of a low, we can try and put in place what appears to be a little bit of a trend. Just about here, you can see we have dropped below it a few occasions, but it is a key bounce point as we move up. The price is once again getting to that point. This is a critical point for the stock, as it's really going to determine the direction we're going to go. Are we going to fail both these levels of support simultaneously and then go down to that 200-day moving average? Or are we going to see a nice little bounce and a continuation of the upwards trend that Nvidia has been enjoying for some time now? Let's take a look at a few other factors as well. First and foremost, let's take a look at the RSI. The RSI is showing us that the selling is moving towards the bottom point. We're hitting the lower range of the RSI, and the fact that we're going to hit this upwards trending line, for me, indicates there is a lot of room for the RSI to move back upwards, a lot of room for the stock then to grow with that, and for some buying momentum to actually come in. We've seen a bit of selling momentum over the past few days, with those moving averages once again failing to keep our support levels in place, dropping down to the next best point, which is of course our two key support points, being the $400 floor as well as that upwards moving trend as well. So I'm expecting that we are going to see some sort of a turnaround, but we do have that little gap there looming, of course, as well. Let's have a look at the MACD. That's always very interesting to see in these sort of scenarios. You can see we're in the red period at this point in time. The 12-day moving average and the 26-day EMA are moving in a downwards direction, and this has only just begun. So that is not looking too positive. If we're going to see a reversal we want to see these moving average lines cross back in an upwards direction. At this point in time, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. So we've got quite a few conflicting factors here. What else can we really take into account? Well, we can take into account that we are seeing some decent consolidation here, and the top end of our resistance is, I suppose, just about here. So I would say that it is reasonable to say that this stock will continue moving in a sideways direction. Even if we do see a little bit of buying, it doesn't mean necessarily we'll see a breakout from a technical point of view. But realistically, people are waiting for those earnings, and you can see earnings is coming up roughly around over here on the 21st of November. So ideally what we're going to see is consolidation up until that point, and then a nice little breakout over here in an upwards direction. That's best case scenario. Now worst case scenario, we have these two critical points of support actually break. Our upwards trending line and of course our horizontal line as well. That would indicate that we're going to drop and likely be heading straight towards that 200-day moving average. Zooming out here, you can see really there's no support from a price action perspective back here, except for this over here on the 22nd of November 2021, where we did hit a high, and that high on that day was $346.47. But just below that is really where a bit of probably price action does occur, and we would get some support, which is honestly towards the bottom end of that gap, $322 roughly. So could we see a drop, and a significant drop at that, before we get the next earnings report? Possibly. People might start to panic, but Nvidia is a strong stock. As long as we maintain overall this upwards trending line over here, Nvidia should be relatively safe. As a result, I'm predicting one of two scenarios. One, we drop down and we lose out on these support points, dropping to our moving average here about $340 odd, or we consolidate sideways. I can't see a big move upwards, breaking basically above this point anytime soon. So I wouldn't expect to see anything above probably $460 until the next earnings report comes out. And of course, it has to be positive. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's analysis. If you did, make sure you do leave a thumbs up. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. And of course, if you want to see more of this sort of content, subscribe and turn on those bell notifications. I'll leave it there for today, guys. Hope you have an awesome day. I'll see you next time. Cheers.